to A Nation of Sisters, but today, of course, we've got two gentlemen in here that are expert on the topic that we're going to talk about today, and it is part 2 of generational wealth. And this is something that is actually near and dear to my heart for several months now, and I wanted to talk about this just because of how different communities handle wealth, right? And how they handle life after wealth, if things are passed down. And getting that opportunity to even pass down, we're going to get into that. So I want all the aunties and uncles to tell their nephews and their nieces to get online, get on the radio, get on Facebook Live. Mom and Dad, we've got some conversations for you as well. Grandma, Grandpa, we've got conversations for everybody. 3 to 4 generations, we're going to be talking to you today. So we're going to jump right into the conversation. But actually, no, let me just do a quick introduction and allow them to introduce themselves because somebody that may not know may need to know who Dean Taylor is. Who is Dean Taylor?
So, well, first of all, good evening, Tammy. Dean Taylor, I'm Ulysses Taylor. I'm the Dean of the College of Business at Fayetteville State University. Been working there quite a while. I'm an attorney, I'm a CPA. I've got a background in taxation, legal issues, those kind of things. And so I've been doing it for a while, and I really enjoy what I do. If your children, if you all need to come back to school, Fayetteville State is the right place to be.
All right. That's Bronco Pride. Attorney Glenn Adams, everybody, I call him, when I first met him, because I didn't really know him that well, but I used to say, oh, that's the Johnny Cochran of Fayetteville. How are you?
Thank you, Tammy, for allowing me to be here. It's always good to be here with you on this show. But, you know, Dean Taylor's pretty brilliant in financial circles, and not just when he talks about tax. You know, I will tell you this much. There are not many African-American tax attorneys in the country, okay? So he kind of underplays his hand a little bit. And I would tell everybody today, he's probably more of the expert on it than anybody in this room. So don't let him sell himself short sometimes. Right. I always tell folks, don't sell yourself short, because, you know, sometimes when I have those questions, I call Dean Taylor.
I understand.
And I send a lot of people to Dean Taylor. I say, go ask him, especially if you're in business. Because there's a lot of tax consequences with that. But I am Glenn Adams, born and raised right here in Fayetteville. You know, I wear a number of hats on the Board of County Commissioners. Dean Taylor tell you. Those who want to come to Fayetteville State, come on. I'm chair of the Board of Trustees over at Fayetteville State, sit on the hospital board. Just trying to give back to the community, trying to educate some of our folk in the community. You know, and I think Dean Taylor will tell you, and I'll tell you, we don't have all the answers, but we've been through enough and enough of the wars to be able to tell you some of the things that we've learned along the way. It's amazing. You and I had a conversation earlier today of what you learn just on the journey.
Right.
And so if you're on that journey, I do believe it's incumbent upon you, and that the Lord makes it so that the people behind you, you give them that wisdom that you've already gotten, so they don't have to take those same stumbles and those same blocks. You know, I tell everybody, if I had known now back then what I knew now, I'd probably be a millionaire, wouldn't be working now.
I would
but
be a
I learned it late in life.
That's right.
So hopefully with some of the information Dean Taylor and you're going to give them, they won't have to work quite as long or quite as hard.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And again, thank you both for being here today. A Nation of Sisters, we are going to jump right into this conversation. And like I said, Dean Taylor is actually co-producing with me today. So, Dean Taylor, where can we start at? Because I want to definitely talk to the grandparents, to the parents, but we've got Fayetteville State listening, we've got Methodist University, we've got Pembroke University, we've got North Carolina State, Peace College listening, and we've got other colleges across the nation listening right now. And we've got to give them this information. And where should we start at?
So let's just start back from the beginning. You know, you and I did this about 2 months ago. We
about
talked
a month
about generational
ago,
wealth. And so just a basic definition of generational wealth. All that is when you take your assets and you pass them down to your family after you leave. And those assets can be various. It can be your home. It can be things like stocks and bonds. You might have a company that you have equity in. You might pass that company down. You might have mutual funds. And it can be any kind of asset that you pass down to your family after you're no longer here. And so the question for I think for a lot of us is this: how do you build that wealth? How do you maintain it? And then how do you protect it from other individuals after you're gone? So that's what we want to talk about today.
And Commissioner Adams, feel free to jump in at any point, because a lot of stuff that you were talking just on today really just opened up my eyes.
Well, you can call it whatever you want to, and you call it generational wealth. One of the things that I talk about is wealth preservation. And I think that's what you're talking about when you're talking about passing it on, is the wealth preservation. And I always tell people, you ask people come in to do wills, it is amazing that it seems sometimes the more money people got, they don't do wills and stuff.
Absolutely.
You look at a whole lot of folk on the national level that died without wills, and people now fighting over this money. So it is about wealth preservation. So you make this wealth as you come along, but then what do you do with it? People really don't realize how much wealth they really have, because they just look at their bank account.
Yeah.
And they don't think about the house, and they don't think about the retirement. They don't think about all the other things, the 401ks they have, and all of that.
The insurance,
and if you start
Insurance,
and
yes.
if you pull all of that together, people are much more wealthy than they really believe.
really are. Yep.
And so, they come into my office or in the attorney's office saying, well, I don't really have much. And then when you start talking to them, they're like, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about this. So there is, and so when we talk about this, is that wealth preservation. But, Tammy, and I think, I thought Dean Taylor was going back to it. One of the things that I do find is that when I talk to a lot of people, is that for African Americans,
Yes.
for instance, when we go to the bank, all right, when I was a little kid, and there's nothing against my mom or anything like that, but when they went to the bank or went to do their business, they said, stay in the car. I got to go in here, and I got to talk to my banker and do all of that.
Yes.
Right.
Well, the other folk take their kids in with them, sitting them beside, and so they're listening to this conversation. Now, they might not get it at that age, but they do see that interaction of how you interacting with this person. That's no knock on past generations, because they were different. It was a different thing in terms of going first to get the courage to go into the bank, to ask these folk for some money. So it's not a knock on past generations, but I think as we move forward, we've got to be able to educate our kids. We've got to take them into those settings when we're closing on our house, when we are going to the bank, or when we're opening a credit card. Tell your kid why you're opening this credit card, because debt is what will drive. You talk about wealth preservation. You can't preserve what you don't have.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And if you leave debt behind, and I'm not going to hog this mic, but so one of the things is that I believe if you go back to the beginning, take your kid with you.
That's good.
Take your kid with you. Let them sit beside you. Let them see where we got this thing of, I can't tell you how much money I got. I don't need to know. You don't need to know this, son. You don't need to know that. And so then you get out of college, you have no idea.
No idea how to handle anything.
And so, you ain't got to tell me everything you got.
Yeah.
Because someone, I was talking to my son one time. I told him, I can't tell you everything. He said, you better tell me, because otherwise I'll put you it's according to where I'm going to put you in that. In the
wheel?
No, not in the wheel. He was talking about when I get older, he was going to put me in the rest home.
In the rest
He said it could be a good rest home, it could be a bad rest home. He said, so be careful. So I said, oh, Lord have mercy. But no, it is, and I think, Detail, we have that. That's an issue. And as we talk about this, I've learned so much along this journey. It amazed me. I'll tell you what, one story, and then I'll go back to you, is that, I'm sitting in my law office, and I'm the only black in there. There's all the white folk in there, and we're talking about. So, I'm sitting there. I'm I'm just listening, because I got to go buy a house and everything. And, all we know is about interest rates, right?
That's right.
And go out there, get my little interest rate and buy my house.
Yeah.
I heard them talking about no interest for 10 years. They talk about play beyond the prime plus one. I'm like, what in the world are they talking about?
What is that? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sitting here all in the dark. I had no idea. I'm like, let me take this down. But so, let's educate our kids. Let's educate them from the beginning. Take them with you when you go do some of this stuff.
And Attorney,
Dean Taylor, you were talking about that literacy.
absolutely.
Education.
So Attorney Adams, one of the key things that I recommend for all universities and all students when they go to college is take a literacy class. I mean, because I think that's the first
Financial
thing.
literacy.
Yeah, they learn so much from there about budgeting, about credit. And what you're talking about the credit right now, not go get yourself set up all these high interest rate credit cards. They really don't need them. They may learn also about the possibility of buying a house and, what does prime plus one mean or fixed rate interest. I think those are extremely important. We try to teach them about things like insurance. I mean, you should buy insurance when you're young versus old, and we can talk about insurance a little bit later, but I think that's the key thing. For me, more than anything else, is how do you manage the wealth, the income you have, and the expenses? That's the key thing for me.
But I think it's important to do that in college. But I believe you got to do it before then.
Yeah,
and now,
I agree.
I'm old now, but
No,
so when
I
I
agree
went
with
off to
that.
college,
Yeah.
when I went off to college, I went off to NC State, and they take you in that first day. There were banks up there saying, "Here's a credit card.
Right.
Oh,
All you do
yes.
is sign your name." I'm like, "Well, credit card, I can do all of this."
Sure.
Yeah, I didn't know what a credit card was, so and you get to pay it off. You can just buy what you want to. You can make 18 years old. Don't have any money. You mean tell me I can go buy that pizza over there and pay for it later?
Yeah.
So I do believe you should have a financial literacy in college, but I think it has to be back in grade school. I think you got to have it when middle school going into high school. They need to have some. It won't be as much as you get in college. But if you wait till the college and you can be in all kind of debt, even the whole in terms of kids going off to college and borrowing all this money, far more than they ever need to be able to do that. That's before they get to you at
I
that
agree.
financial
I totally
literacy.
agree.
Yeah.
And, the parents never went to college, and here's all this money, and all they tell the parents do is sign right here, and you can get this. And now they got all these student loans. But what they're using the student loans for is to live in an apartment, buy a car, eat out every third day, as opposed to saying, I'm buying just enough to go to school and then go from there.
I agree. And
And
Attorney
I
Adams,
think-
one other key thing is this. I mean, I think even as a young individual, the parents might want to sit down and just have their kids open up an account
Right.
and just manage that account for them.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to have a lot of money in there, but just a few $100s, and they can at least know that you put a few dollars here now, it'll grow a little bit, and that's the key thing. And so you learn to manage what
Compound
you have.
interest, huh?
Absolutely.
And you said something that I think is huge. When we actually are on our way to college, there needs to be a financial advisor. So we have advisors, a guidance counselor in the high school, but we don't have anybody advising us on financial situations in the high school. And so I'll just use myself as an example. When I filled out applications for grants and scholarships and so forth, there was a pocket of student loans that came with that. Well, my mom never went to college, right? And her mom never went to college, and her mom never went to college. So I'm, filling out this information and not understanding that, oh, God, you're going to regret all of these student loans before you get, before it's over with, you're going to regret that. So I think it is critical that the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade year, that there is at least a class of some sort to talk to kids about finances and how to handle the finances, because the parents don't always know. And it's no knock against my mom. She just didn't. You just don't know what you don't know.
That's why I say it's not.
That's right.
It's not a knock on any prior generation.
Yeah.
You only know what was given to you and what was given to you, and that's why I say for us, it's important that where we are now is to go back and tell those ones that's coming along now. Okay, this is what you need to be looking at. And how to do some of these things. And, if you, and that's what he was talking about. If you start saving at 22, no matter how much you save, by the time you're 50, it's a whole different ball game than if you don't start saving at all.
Exactly.
But, I always say, my mom and my wife was a stickler with it with our kids, is that even though we gave them an allowance and everything, you had to tie it to the church.
That's
you
right.
had to tie it to your bank account. And then you got to spend a little bit at the end, but you didn't just get to go spend all of that. And I'm gonna just tell you, even that they cost so much more now, but my kid wanted, those games, and they wanted the tennis shoes. You got to pay half. So you get save your money up. Once you got the half, you can come talk to me. If you ain't got at least half of it, don't come talk to me.
So what are your thoughts on, because my mom and a lot of moms are guilty of saying this. I hear this all the time, and I'm sure when I say it, everybody listening is going to be like, yeah, I was told that. Oh, when you're 18, I'm done. I've done all I needed to do. I've done all I'm required to do. You're grown now. You're on your own. But you're really not on your own, because I had to go back home. I think at least twice I had to come back home.
You're not prepared. You really aren't
You're
prepared.
not prepared.
One of the good things now is that they do offer financial literacy classes in high school, and that helps right now. That's better than what it used to. I mean, that's a great thing. But when I was in college, I'm dating myself right now. I only knew two things: Pell and loans, and that's it. I mean, there were very few scholarships.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, if I wanted to go to summer school, if I wanted to live even a little bit above my means, I had to work and get a loan. And I did work study. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with a young individual in college doing work study. I think they should. I think they get the work ethic at that point in time. I think also they should always seek out these scholarships. Attorney Adams, the big thing that puzzles me is that we've got so many scholarships around the country now that no one ever applies for.
That's right.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit more effort to write an essay
That's right.
than to get a loan. And so, you're hurting yourself at that point in time. Again, the Pell is still there. The loans are still there, but there's numerous scholarships. It's just if you do a little effort, you'll be there with those.
Here's what I tell people every day, because and I talk to some of my other attorneys downtown. We do it all the time. I don't even know where the 18 became some magical number. That at 18, because you graduate from high school, you're now this mature adult to be able to do this. I tell parents, first, quit listening to all those other friends of yours.
Wow.
You know your child
Right.
better than everybody else know their child.
Yes.
Your child was not on 17 and 29 days or whatever, almost up, was not mature. 18 does not necessarily make them a mature adult.
No, it doesn't.
I
That's
wasn't mature at 18. Most of us not. Now they even tell you that the youth brain doesn't mature till 25. So I don't, that's all that scientific stuff. But they say until 25. But what I tell people is, people say at 18 you got to get out of my house. Well, for one, I think you're turning them out into the street and no telling what may happen.
Exactly.
Two is that, don't worry about what other folks say. You know your child need to stay in your house. You put your child in your house and you keep your child till they 24, 25. I don't have a problem with that. Now, the one thing I did tell my children, if you didn't go to college and you came home, is that when I get up in the morning to go to work, everybody else getting up in the house to go to work. Everybody leaving here when I leave here. Ain't nobody sitting here asleep when I leave here. And so, I'm going to charge you rent. Okay? You got to pay some rent. All this stuff about paying for light bill, pay for that, that's my job. You don't pay for my light bill, you don't pay. I got to pay that anyway. So what we do, what I encourage parents do, take that rent and put it in an account.
Right.
And just keep putting it into account. And when they get ready to go, you've got that money saved up.
Wow.
So whatever that amount is, you ain't got to charge them ongoing rent $1,800. But even if you're giving $200 a month, you put that over 12 months, and you keep them, and they stay in there till they're 22. Think about what you can grant them when they get ready to leave their house. They've got undergirding if they want to try to get something and help with a house or with rent. They've got this and I don't even tell them that that's what I'm doing with it. I'm just telling them you got to.
I was just going to say, do you tell
no,
them?
No, they don't need to know
Disclose
that
that.
because they be wanting that money back.
Yeah.
Or they be trying to get ready to go when they're not ready.
Sure.
And so you're not trying to push them out. But what you tell them is, but you got to have a goal. When you tell them about leaving here, you can't stay here forever.
Right.
But let's do a plan, and let's do a plan of how you're going to do this. So many parents worry about what their friends are saying about, oh, you got your son still in the house. Oh, I can't believe it. Don't worry about that. You know your child.
Absolutely.
You deal with your child.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing, because a lot of these parents need to get their friends out of their business, out of their house, because what goes on in my house is what goes on in my house.
I totally
like
agree.
I'm paying the lease here, I'm paying the mortgage here.
So, Attorney Adams, one more thing. So, we talked about young individuals opening up a bank account.
Yes.
What about an investment account? What do you think about starting investing at an early age?
Well, I gifted my children money to be able to go invest. And now I tell you, stock market is scary. So you know what I tell my kids? Think about what you use every day, and invest in that. I go to Walmart every day. If you go to Walmart, all of us go to Walmart. So I'm gonna buy some Walmart stock because
Yeah.
I'm paying myself.
That's what I do.
All right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, if I eat Krispy Kreme every day, I might need to buy me a Krispy. So, you don't have
Come
to
on.
have all of this grand knowledge at first to be able to do this. Now, don't use your money that you got to pay your bills. Now, this is extra money, Dean.
Exactly. That's what we're talking about.
This is the extra money now. This is
That's
some
right.
money over to the side because
Make it plain.
as well as it go up, it comes down. But, if you don't know the stock market, and the stock market comes and goes, and so if you got kids that's going to invest, they're investing for the long haul. But invest in something you know.
Right.
Something that you use. If it's something that you use, at least you're paying yourself. And that's the way and then I told my kids, as you get older and you learn more about the market and you can kind of do that independent research, then you can do other stocks. But just for right now, you go to GameStop, invest in GameStop.
Exactly.
You do games all the time. You in Xbox. You buy Nike shoes, you got Nikes on your feet every day. Buy a Nike. Buy something that you use. That's an easy way, I think, to get started in it.
And the key thing for me is that they got to get started at some
They gotta
point in
get
time.
started.
Let's get started young, while they're
Right.
young,
Right.
and not wait until they're 40 or 50 years old. Buy a couple stocks when you're in high school. You can go to any of these brokerage firms like TD Ameritrade, Merrill Lynch.
Free investing.
That's it, free investing. And just get yourself started. That's the key thing. And so, once you get past your 10 years, in your 20s, you invest more, but you're more savvy at that point in time.
My mother didn't know anything about stocks, and as some of the older folk who came through the Depression and stuff, they like, I ain't putting my money in there, it's going to be gone. And so we have to now educate our kids and our people. That's where if you want to have an increase in your money, you got to have your money working for you. And it's not working for you in the bank, Dean.
Right.
You're getting 0.00% interest, and they're using your money to loan out
Yes,
to
they
other
are.
people.
Yes,
Yes.
And one of the things that I also say is that, and you at the business school, if people remember when everybody went out and got these PPP loans and all of
Yeah.
that. So for us, we go in and open up a bank account, whether we got a business or whatever, and we just deal with that bank account. We don't have a personal relationship with the bank.
No.
We don't have a banker. That's the other thing I learned. You got to know somebody at the bank that you can go in that
That's
know
right.
your name,
That's what I was
that can deal with you. Because I'm gonna just tell you, when they got ready to do the PPP loan, my people at First Citizen, the guy called us up on the telephone and said, "Hey, we got you. We're gonna do this loan for you." I had other friends who were attorneys who couldn't even get into the bank because they didn't know anybody. You got to do relationships. This is relationship,
Exactly.
Dean. You're in
Exactly.
business. Businesses, and even as we talk about wealth preservation and all of this,
Yes.
it's about networking. It's about
Absolutely.
contacts and all of that. And so we've got to learn that we've got to have a personal banker in that bank that knows your name. When they come in and say, "Hey, Ulysses, how you doing?"
That's right.
Dean, talk about that personal banker, because that's what you and I were kind of alluding to before we even started this conversation. Who is it that's educating us? Who is that person that is guiding us through these financial decisions?
Well, again, I think as Attorney Adams said, the personal banker is extremely important. You got to have a relationship with that banker so you can go to him and ask them anything. I had several situations with individuals that I know very well too that with the PPP loans, they had to go to other banks other than
Their own
their
bank.
bank to do this because their bank just weren't taking applications at that point in time. So they had to go. Some of them even had to go open up new accounts at other banks in order to do it. The personal banker is extremely important. And the children, we should start this at a young age. Get your banker. I mean, people come and go at banks. That's the key thing. But the relationship with the bank is important. I've had my same bank forever. I'm not going to mention the bank, but I've utilized this bank for 50 years. And I got a great relationship with them. So when I go there, they know my name. If I need anything, they don't ask questions. They just get it done. So that's very important for me.
So is it strategic to have more than one bank? I mean, should we bank with a regular bank like a Bank of America? Should we bank with a credit union? What should we be doing?
Well, I like to spread my wealth around a little bit. So I have 3 different banks that I utilize right now. I have a bank I utilize for my mortgage loan.
Okay.
I have a bank that I utilize for if I want to have credit cards. I have a separate bank. I have a bank for savings, and I have a bank for my business. If I have just straight transactions, I'll use that bank for that. So if I need something and one bank is not ready to do it, I can always go to someone else, and that's very helpful. And Glenn, I'm sure you have the same situation.
And I would tell you, even as they and the story goes is even at Simon Temple they were at Truist Bank forever and ever, running millions of dollars through there. They went there to try to get a loan, and they wouldn't give them the full amount. That's why they at Mechanics and Farmers now.
Right.
So what I tell people is, you ain't got to stay at the same bank. If you don't at some point tell your bank, well, I might need to go somewhere else, they're not going to lower your interest rate just because you've been a good customer for 20 years.
That's right.
You've got to say, okay, what can you do for me? My bank is supposed to be working for me. So if you can't work for me, then I need to go somewhere else. So, we get into this that I opened my bank, I would tell you, it used to be NCNB, then it became something else. Now it's Bank of America and all of that.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to work for me, I'll go to Truist. I'll go to United Bank over there. I'll go. Look, so if you're going to tell me I've been sitting here paying this interest rate, you could have lowered me because I talked to this other banker over here. He told me he's going to give me, well, I'll match that. Well, wait a minute. Why didn't you come tell me you could have lowered this? So just because you got your money in the bank, you need to make sure. That's why you got to have this relationship with the bank to say, what can you do for me? What can you do on this? Even on your credit cards. You can call up the credit card and say, look, I'm finna get ready to go.
Absolutely.
It's too high.
Yeah.
You either increase my limit if you want to. I'm not into a big limit guy. Or you could reduce my interest rate on this. We have the power. And that's what I think I want our folk to understand.
That's what we don't understand.
We have the power. We have the power of the purse. And for African Americans, we have the amount of wealth we have mirrors countries all over the world. And so once we understand the power that we have and that we can generate, then you can go in there and it's not like you're demanding, but it's the financial literacy. You got to know what to ask for.
Right.
You don't know what to do. You don't know what you don't know. And that's why I think it's incumbent. And what you're doing here with Dean Taylor, you had him last month, you had him this month, I hope you have him again, is to be able to put the information out there. Now, I'm going to just tell you now, when we were growing up, you didn't have these smartphones. This information is, even if you don't, in a financial literacy class, why they call it a smartphone? Because it's supposed to make you smarter, right? So you can download
anything,
a whole lot of stuff and learn on your own, too.
So, Dean Taylor, Glenn, tell me, how do we build a relationship with a financial institution? What does that actually look like? And either one of you can tackle it.
Well, first of all, I think a lot of times it's a slow process, and it involves, being consistent with the banker you use, and that's the first thing. But I think equally important is that you've got to be careful about your credit scores. I mean, those things will impact you forever. If you got low credit scores, it's very difficult to get the financial backing or financial relationships you want. And so you have to be mindful of what you buy, when you buy it, what your credit limits are and everything. So I think that's going to be important to me. But for my bankers, I always try to be consistent with my banking relationship. Just like when I buy a car from the same dealer always. And when I go there, the first thing I ask them, I say, okay, do I get the customer appreciation discount? You know what it is. It's at least 10%. And they always say, sure. They don't have to even haggle with me. It's automatically 10% off whatever I do. And so the bank's going to be something different. They're not going to give you 10% off, but they'll give you those extra perks that you wouldn't normally get. But you've got to be consistent. You've got to go there to them and, review your credit score on a regular basis. I mean, I look at my credit score probably every 2 or 3 months. My bank sends it to me automatically, so I know where it is. And so, and they tell me if it goes down, they tell me why. If it goes up, they tell me why it went up too. And so just be consistent with it. That's the key thing for me.
So I have one of our Facebook followers on A Nation of Sisters. She says, honestly, my parents were on my brother and I about our financial freedom. credit cards and all of that. We started out with a credit union and then to a bank. Only allowed to have one card, $250 limit.
That's
As
right.
you know, 1990s, that was a lot. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I like the idea of limiting the credit. If you don't need it, don't have it. You should always have some credit. The key thing for me is that there are needs and there are wants. And so take care of your needs first and then look at your wants later. And that's the key thing. So if you don't need to have a $500,000 of credit limit, but you got to have enough that, when there's something comes up that needs funding, you can fund those items at that point in time.
Well, I always say, the worst thing that ever happened is they got rid of layaway. I'm just going to tell you. My folk, when I grew up, layaway was it.
It was
because
it.
what happens is this. He talked to you about credit score, right? So on layaway, you went in there, you got it, you put it up on the shelf, you went in there and paid every month. If you didn't pay it, they put it back on the shelf.
That's right.
Your credit score didn't go anywhere.
That's right.
Credit cards, you go in there, buy that TV, by the time, if you don't pay it off, by the time it paid off, the TV done broke and you got to go get another one. You still
That's right.
paying on something that you don't have. Madison Avenue has just ruined us and people in general, not just us. It's this, I got to have it now. This microwave thing is, I got to have it now, so I'm going to use this credit card, as opposed to I'm going to save it up and then go buy what I want.
Okay.
And so the one thing that I talk to my children about is, if you can't pay it off at the end of the month,
Right.
you don't need to put it on a credit card.
That's good.
Because now once you let that interest go, you paying somebody else. You actually paying somebody else to use your own money. That makes no sense to
Exactly.
me.
And
It
Glenn,
makes no sense to me.
The key thing also is that individuals need to understand about the prime and how these rates are going up. Those prime rates impact what you pay on your credit cards right now. They went up probably by 3 or 4 points already. So your credit cards have went up 5% over the last 6 or 8 months, and that's a huge amount of money. I have an interest rate on my house of 2.6%. Okay, great rate.
Great.
But if
Yeah.
I had to do a loan right now on my house right now, it'll probably be somewhere in the mid-7s, mid-6.
That's
okay?
just- yeah.
And that's a huge
Wait a minute, he ain't gonna
difference.
tell you that when he bought that first house, it was at 17. People don't remember interest
Absolutely.
rates
And I
used to
don't
be
remember
at
that, but I've heard
17 and
about
My first
18.
that.
house was
Yeah.
People don't remember
17%.
interest rates used to be at 17 and 18%.
I cannot believe it.
But the only good part about that interest rate at that point in time, you can deduct those off your tax return. You can't deduct any of that right now, so that's the key thing.
I could
That's
not
the difference.
believe it.
Yes, it was.
That was a while ago.
We've been
That's a while
through some
ago.
stuff, child.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Absolutely.
But
Go ahead.
even as we talk about, I do believe that if you give them a credit card, but you teach them how to use that credit card while they're in your house,
Right.
okay?
And that's a month-to-month thing. You can't just
right.
say, oh, I'm going to teach them and then let them go a whole year and you haven't even had a conversation.
Right.
You haven't pulled a spreadsheet, nothing. You gotta you gotta be on them every
Right.
single month. And I know this from experience. Guys, we're going to take a commercial break. You are listening to A Nation of Sisters with WIDU. We have Commissioner Adams. We have Dean Taylor from Fayetteville State University. We are talking all things generational wealth. We'll be right back.
Good evening. Tonight's forecast, partly cloudy, low temperatures fall into the mid-60s tonight. An increase in cloud cover expected Thursday, but still warm with highs climbing into the low to mid-80s. Some scattered thunderstorms during the afternoon and early evening. A few of those could be severe with strong winds and hail. Friday, rain likely with temperatures falling throughout the day, likely only in the 50s for most areas by the afternoon. I'm meteorologist Kat Campbell in the Weather Center.
Mecklenburg County Representative Tricia Cotham says she is switching parties, becoming a Republican. The move will give Republicans 72 seats in the House, the exact number needed to override any vetoes from Governor Roy Cooper. The state Democratic Party has now called for Cotham to resign. New York prosecutors allege that former President Donald Trump repeatedly and fraudulently falsified business records to silence claims of extramarital affairs and unfairly influence voters. Trump pleaded not guilty to 34 counts on Tuesday. He's due back in court in December. The Maryland Attorney General's office has released a redacted report of more than 450 pages on the sexual abuse within the Archdiocese of Baltimore. The report goes back over 80 years and identifies more than 150 priests, deacons, and Catholic teachers within the Archdiocese accused of the sexual abuse and physical torture of hundreds of victims. Jeff Hamlin, NC.
Good evening. Tonight's forecast, partly cloudy, low temperatures fall into the mid-60s tonight. An increase in cloud cover expected Thursday, but still warm with highs climbing into the low to mid-80s. Some scattered thunderstorms during the afternoon and early evening. A few of those could be severe with strong winds and hail. Friday, rain likely with temperatures falling throughout the day, likely only in the 50s for most areas by the afternoon. I'm meteorologist Kat Campbell in the Weather Center.
NCN News, I'm Jeff Hamlin. A Democratic state representative has joined the Republican Party. That word today from Mecklenburg County Democratic State Representative Tricia Cotham. House Speaker Tim Moore welcomed Cotham to his caucus this morning.
In the last few weeks, as I was talking with Representative Cotham, I got a sense that she was unhappy, felt like she maybe was having to vote against her conscience in a lot of ways. And so, told her that we'd love to have you. And by the way, she's not the only Democrat that we've had great conversations with.
Cotham previously served 10 years in the General Assembly as a Democrat and ran as a Democrat last November. The state Democratic Party held its own press conference today. Chair Anderson Clayton responded to the move.
This is not about political vendettas. This is about the constituents that trusted Representative Cotham to champion their values, who are now left with little reassurance that she will do that. HD 112 is a 60% Democratic district, y'all, and they do not choose to elect a Republican.
The Democratic Party asked Cotham to resign. Several years after the unexpected death of a North Carolina athlete during a high school cross-country meet, some state legislators are proposing an act to encourage schools to have proper medical condition action plans in the case of an emergency. Craven County Schools District Lead Nurse Luann Mack tells WITN.
We have annual training requirements at the beginning of the school year for all employees with the Craven County Schools. We also have a registered nurse in every school that has trained backup staff in her schools for any type of emergency that may occur.
The Samantha Rose Davis Act is primarily sponsored by 4 North Carolina lawmakers. Researcher at Duke University arrested and charged with second-degree sexual exploitation of a minor. Yi Yao was arrested. This is NCN News.
Tonight's forecast, partly cloudy, low temperatures falling into the mid-60s tonight. A strong storm system approaches tomorrow. It brings a chance of some scattered showers and storms, mainly during the afternoon and evening. Otherwise, mostly cloudy, but still warm with highs in the low to mid-80s. Temperatures on Friday will be falling throughout the day behind that system, likely in the 50s by the afternoon, with rain likely. I'm meteorologist Kat Campbell in the Weather Center.
It's like you're looking through a telescope. You see where you're gonna be. Growing, getting better. You're not the person they see. Can't be mad at the things you've been through.
Welcome back to the second half segment of A Nation of Sisters radio talk show. Very informative guests and great vital information. Let us welcome back and let us continue to enjoy our hostess with the mostest, the lady of the hour, too sweet to be sour, Miss Tammy Thurman, and her special invited guest, backed by popular demand, Dr. Ulysses Taylor, and the attorney himself, Attorney Alan Rogers. Back to you, Miss Tammy Thurman, with the Nation of Sisters radio talk show.
She did good. She did good. She did good right up until the end. She done changed my name, but that's all right.
She did it twice.
But that's okay, because at least you gave me somebody that's doing some stuff. So that's all right, darling. Don't worry about it.
Listen.
It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, it's all good.
Yes.
It's all good, girl. It's
Welcome
all good.
back.
It's all
Welcome
good.
back. Welcome back, everybody listening to A Nation of Sisters. If you are listening to us on WIDU 99.7, 1600 AM, please feel free to go to Facebook Live so that you can see these gentlemen in this room. They are giving us so many amazing nuggets about generational wealth. So, Dean Taylor, I'm going to turn this portion over to you, and let's get into, now we've already talked about our younger generation, we kind of talked about the parents, but let's talk about those who are in college, have graduated college, and already have started families. So those are going to be the people around the 20, 30, 40 age bracket. What's the first piece of information that you would recommend that they need to know?
Well, the first thing is that it's never too late to learn. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can be 60, you can be 70. You can always learn from others, and you can always learn from reading and doing your research. And so, I look at the 20 to 30-year-olds as the first years out of college. And they have a lot more wants than needs at that point in time. And so by having that, the spending habits can get someone out of kilter. I always tell everyone, please limit what you put on credit cards. I would always try to do a rainy day fund. I mean, and a rainy day fund is separate from investing, but just have some money set aside. So if you need some money, you got the money.
How do we do that when we're just graduated college?
Well, so whatever you're making right now, you should be able to separate that money into different buckets of funds. So, for example, if you have those day-to-day bills you got to pay those bills. I would always try to put some dollar amount away for my personal benefit. The worst thing in the world is to work for someone or yourself and not having the money to enjoy those personal things. So you got to have a little bit of money right there.
Yeah.
But you also got to anticipate those things that may happen, may come up. And so pull a little money aside for those also. And, pay your bills. And then if you have anything left over, maybe try to do some investing. I mean, I think that's the way to go. A lot of individuals in their 20s and 30s, they try to get a house. Some of them don't. But I think if they take that process, limit the credit card bills, get a small rainy day fund, and then you have your own personal funds too. I think that helps you a lot. You don't need a lot of money a lot of times to have fun, but you need a little bit, and so always put a little bit of money aside.
What I tell Tammy is that you get out and you get that job, and then you get a raise. Is that before it gets into your account and into your personal spending, so you know what comes in right now.
Yeah.
So if they give you a 3% raise or whatever, before it gets in there and you start spending it, go ahead and take that out. Because if you take it out before you ever see it, you can't spend it.
That's right.
So if whatever that bonus is going to be, whatever that raise is going to be, if that raise is $100, then go ahead and take 75 of it and put it over into that rainy day fund or in that investment fund, because you didn't need it. We always need some money, but because you haven't seen it and hadn't used it. See, once it gets into that regular cash flow, into that regular bank account, it's hard then to start trying to move stuff out. So I always told my kids, every time you get a raise, before you see it go into your account, go ahead and divert it. And Dr. Taylor will tell you, and this is what people really don't get. If your company has a 401k or a SEP, invest the maximum amount of money into it, because the company is going to match it. It's pre-tax dollars. We ain't even getting it. He's a tax man. But and this is where you're talking about, because these kids come out of college and they get their job and they're like, no, I don't want to, you're going to take my money out to do something, and I'm talking 30 years down the road, so that means you're going to lower what I get. But if you know that it's pre-tax dollars, which means it already, you already got a win with pre-tax dollars by using it to fund this.
Right.
Then the company's going to match that, okay? And so you've got to take advantage of what is given to you. And so you're talking about generational wealth. That's how you can get that, because that money you're getting free money on top of your money.
Yeah.
So,
Right?
I think Attorney Adams has a copy of my notes.
I'm way over here on the other side of the room.
That is the next thing I'm going to say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm glad it's a great segue. Whenever you have that money, I mean, they always tell you, max out what you can put in your retirement account. I met with my advisor last week, and I hadn't quite maxed out. He said, listen, you got a new position now. I'm sure you got a
That's
raise.
what I was told too.
Yeah,
that I had maxed out.
Max it
Yep.
out.
You had
max
maxed
it
it
out.
out.
And when you max it out, we have some other avenues you can put some additional money in. But at least max that out, because you're getting those pre-tax dollars.
Yeah.
A dollar you put in there it's not really a dollar. It's probably really 65 cents. And so it really helps you by doing that.
Yeah.
And then when you take it out, you retired, you're in a lower tax bracket. Absolutely. And so now, not only have you saved this money with pre-tax dollars, if I get that money now taxable at the tax rate that I am, which is this high tax rate, whereas if I put it over here, pre-tax dollars, maxed up by my employer, when I retire and I'm now on a lower tax bracket, it gets taxed at a different level. And so now you've saved that money over all that time and didn't pay Uncle Sam all those taxes. I tell people all the time, they talk about wanting this big tax refund. Mm-hmm. All you did was let Uncle Sam use your money for a whole year. That's all you did. Yeah. And now some people use it as their savings account or whatever, but I want my money up front. I don't need you to hold my money and then give it to me when I file my tax returns. I need my money along the way. So you've got to know how to fill out your W-2s and all of that so that you take the maximum, the number of exemptions that you need to take and not take to be able to take your money along the way. I can invest my own money. I don't need Uncle Sam keeping my money. Dr. Taylor, what you talking about?
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. One other thing related to generational wealth is that you have to protect your family at an early age if you have children or spouse. Mm-hmm. So you need to consider buying life insurance. The younger you buy it, the cheaper it is. And I never consider life insurance as an investment. I typically consider that as a protection for the family. That's the idea. And so if you do have this generational wealth on the side, and something happens to you that's catastrophic, and you die, and then they have to use that money to pay the bills, that's going to be very difficult. Have insurance as a side item, and that's to protect the family. And it's best to get it while you're young.
Yeah.
And, insurance is made for when you have that young family, so that if something happens to you, they're not going to be suffering.
And there are different types of insurance.
Absolutely.
We need to be educated on that. Mm-hmm. So 2 things with that. So I'm going to look dead into this camera. I want everybody to understand, especially in the communities of color, if you get to a certain point, and it will happen, you get to a certain point and you really just do not have any wealth, anything to pass on to your children, nobody's going to hold that against you, and that's fine. But what I really just beg of you, please have some insurance taken out on yourself, because if you cannot leave wealth, please don't leave debt for your family to have to deal with. You can get an insurance policy of $10,000. Typically, it only takes somewhere around $8,000 for a most basic funeral to get you to get you in
I don't know. You ain't been to that funeral home lately, but anyway. No, you don't
need to get a gold casket. Why are you going to get buried in a gold casket? Come on, that makes no sense. And I understand you love that, but that person is not there. But
one of the things I tell people all the time is that you have to plan for those things, for death and all of that. It sounds morbid that you have to plan for it.
You do have to plan.
But you have to plan not only for death, but for life too. So what I tell folk every day is, one, we as African Americans put so much money in the ground when people die because we're feeling we go into that funeral home, we're crying, they're showing you all of these caskets, and then we got some family member that came in that didn't think they did right by mom or dad, and so they want to buy that big casket and everything. I told y'all the story during break that years ago I was down at Miss Wiseman. She and I talked. I was walking through there.
Shout out to Wiseman Funeral Home.
That's right. And so I was back there looking at the caskets, and I said, well, that's a nice casket. She said, but that one over there has got a 30-year warranty. I'm like, what they going to do, dig me up in 29 years? I don't need. What difference does it make? I mean, once I'm in the ground, it ain't coming back up. But it costs more. And then you start talking about wood grain and all of this stuff. So I told my kids, I'm prepaying my funeral. And so that way y'all ain't got to worry about whether I'm putting dad away right, because I put myself away the way I wanted to. But the only other thing I talk about is this. In terms of doing a will. So it's interesting that I talk to people all the time. Give your stuff away before you die, so you don't have these tax consequences. So,
and I want you to talk about that too.
Yeah, he'll talk about that. So, for instance, you got this beautiful china pattern, right? And so when you were younger, you pulled out the china, and everybody, you ain't used that china in 20 years, but I'm going to give it to my grandbaby when I die. Why don't you go ahead and give it to her now and see the look on her face?
Wow.
Right? I tell folk that I had this client. This lady rode around all the time. She could barely roll down the window of her car because her car was old, because she was saving this money for her son or her somebody left out. 2 days later, they had a Mercedes sitting up in the driveway, and that poor lady didn't even have air conditioning. So, that's why you got to know, just like I say, you know your children, you know who you're leaving this stuff to, and what they can handle and what they can't handle. So when I was doing my will, and my kids were they were still young, so I said, if I die, my kids weren't going to be able to get that money until they were 29 or 30 years old, because I wanted them to get out of college, get a job, and see what it was like to pay their own bills before I just gave them just lump sum money. So you got to know each one of your kids are different. So you just can't say I'm going to give everybody the same amount. One is thrifty, one going to spend, and the other one's somewhere in the middle.
Absolutely. I totally
and so
agree.
Then we end up saving up all our money. Hospital bills at the end will kill and take every dime you have.
Yeah.
We may have to go into, we didn't get that long-term health care insurance that Dr. Taylor's talking about. So now I got to put mom over into a nursing home. And so you think you're going to get this Medicare, but they do a 10-year look back. So you can't get that because you got to sell everything. You can move some of this stuff. You talk to your financial, to your estate planner. You move some of this stuff around, and so that the government doesn't take it.
Right.
And that's where you even, I think he's talking about, as we did the young kids, we did the 20 to 30. Right. When you're 50, 60, 70, you can move some of this stuff around to be able to save it so you can have that generational wealth. It's about that wealth preservation, saving what you have, because you've been wanting to pass this on to your kids. Don't let the hospital take it. Don't let the nursing home take it and all of that. There are ways around that. That's why it's important to talk to your state planner to be able to do that. And those guys are different. They're different than me.
Right.
And well, Dr. Taylor's a little bit different because he got that tax background. Because you got to know those tax consequences when you do that, right, Dr. Taylor?
Absolutely. One of the things that when you talk about retirement accounts and everything, people need to understand, if you got a spouse, they can take your retirement account and treat it just like you. But your children can't.
Right.
If you give money to your children through a retirement account, they've got to take all that money out in 10 years. They got a 10-year window to take all that money out. So you got to be cognizant of you got to live from the grave and identify what you want to do.
Wow.
And Attorney Adams, I think you're right. The will is the first thing. The second thing for me is that how do you protect your assets against your kids getting those assets and then doing some things you don't want to happen? And so
Let's talk about that.
well, one of the big ways would be through a trust, and I'm no trust expert, but I tell you, I think that's an avenue you want to use. Just think about what can happen. Your child could have $1 million in debt. You give them $1 million, and all that money will be gone right now. You put in a trust, and that trust instrument might be set up so that they can only get a certain amount of money at a certain time, and so you got to be really careful about that. You might have a child who's a professional. They maybe get sued for malpractice insurance. We can get sued at any time, okay? They'll take all our personal assets. If you don't protect those monies that you're going to get from inheritance, then that money could be used also to pay off those malpractice accounts and everything too. And so you got to be very careful. So I would say, talk to your financial advisor about getting some kind of trust set up so that you can protect those assets. You can even, from the grave, you can even identify how much your heir will get on an annual basis, a monthly basis, and how they spend that money to a certain extent.
When it's paid up.
So,
and you have to also be careful if your kid's getting any kind of disability. Because if you leave them a chunk of money,
absolutely,
it kicks out their disability. And then they have to, after that money's gone, then that's that period of time that you've got to go back to try to get them requalified and everything. And so there are trusts and things that will be able to do that. So it's never too late to talk to a financial planner or estate planner, basically, at that age of what we're going to do, how can I do this, and what do I need to do within the tax consequences and the laws to be able to, again, preserve that wealth and pass it on. And pass it on in a way that it doesn't create tax liabilities for the next person that you're leaving it to.
And Attorney Adams, you made the correct statement that no one knows how much they're worth
Right.
until they sit and talk to someone. And so,
Yeah.
you can be worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
You just don't know it.
Yeah.
And so you need to figure out what you're worth, number one, and then identify how you want that money to go at some point in time. But first of all, look at what you got, because sometimes you don't know what you got. Your retirement account could really have a lot of money in there. You just don't know it.
How
the
do
house could
we-
be worth $1 million. You don't know it.
Yeah.
That's right.
How do we get, because we just got a few more minutes to go. Gosh, how do we get our young people to get to this point? So I'm 50, and I'm not going to say your ages.
That's right.
But we're thinking totally different. But if I see the Tammy when she was 22 years old, didn't think the way that I think now. How do we get our kids in that mind state? And I'm saying kids, but they're really adults. How
Young
do we
adults.
get the young adults in that mind state to prepare for their future? How do we get them there?
I think the first thing Attorney Adams said, you got to start them early. I mean, you really got to start them from the cradle to at least understand what the value of money is and how it's earned and how you get rid of it, those kind of things. There has to be some education along the way. And, you can't make anyone become educated about monies, but typically the older you get, the more you think about where you are in life, what you have. And so, but sometimes individuals think they're too old to learn anything new. You're never too old. Trust me, I learn every day from something. I have people come to me. I have a lot of smart people working with me, and I listen to them a lot of times. And so I want to say, listen to those individuals who you can trust. That's the key thing. Don't get taken advantage of, but you always got to have a mentor out there that will come to you and tell you the right things. And I think those mentors are very important.
Tab, it's not as bad as you think. These millennials, they don't want to work till they're 65 and 70. They are trying to find ways to invest their money now. The interesting part, so it's not a difficult sell to these young folk.
Okay.
It's not. They don't want. They're not. I talk to my kid. My kid talking about, I want to be retired by the time I'm 35 or 40. I'm like, well, I'm still be working. You're gonna be retired. 'Cause
exactly.
I can't do. But anyway, that's their mindset. So they're already in the mindset of wanting to retire. So they know they have to have money. And so so it's really not a hard sell to them. The sale is to be able to get them into a literacy class or literacy saying you don't know it all. Here's some folk here who can help you do that. And here's the thing about this is that we don't want to spend money. I don't want to pay for no financial advisor. Well, everybody, look, everything costs.
Everything
That
costs.
financial advisor, I'm not a tax attorney, so I got to go to Dean Taylor to say, look, this is what I got on this tax liability. I got to pay him. So, people like, I ain't paying nobody to tell me how to save my money, spend my money. But that's the professional. So it's going to cost you a little bit to be able to get where you want to go. But I'm encouraged by these millennials and these young folk.
Awesome.
Oh, when they talk, they talk money. They look, let me tell you what I did. I had 5 children, right? So we go on vacation. Oh, my kids be on vacation. They want to buy everything, right? Give me that, Daddy. Give me that, Daddy. Give me that, Daddy. I said, hey, this is not a good way to go. So you know what I did, right? Before we left home, I said, here's your chunk of money. You buy whatever you want to. I'm not even going to tell you can't buy it. But now when that's gone, you
That's
out.
it. Yeah.
Let's go.
So we go out. We are walking around to some of the same places. I say, you want that? I ain't spending my money on
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I'm
That's how my niece
what?
is.
No. And now, the first time we went, one of my children spent all their money in the first week and didn't have none. The first 3 days and didn't have none. The other one's over there scrounging. But what happened? What they learned was the value of money. I ain't gonna buy that. I ain't buying that. I'm not spending my money on that.
Yes.
You want to buy it for me? No, I told you.
Yep.
I'm gonna do the food. I'm gonna have you a place to stay. Any of those extra stuff, you want to go buy that ice cream over there? Go and buy it. There, you got some money, and they learn. And I saved a whole lot of money, boy. And I ain't have all the headaches because they didn't have to ask me every second we turned around. Can I have that? Because they know what I was gonna say. Use your money.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so it doesn't have to be a great thing that we have to think about trying to teach our kids that. You give them the money, let them go into the store. And I told them, you can buy whatever you want to, as long as it's legal. But you can buy whatever you want to. I'm not going to tell you can't buy it. If you got the money on this vacation, you can buy it. But once that money's gone, then they understand the value of money and the value of, do I really want? I saw one of my children sitting there looking at something real hard. I'm like, what you doing? Just trying to decide whether I want that or not. I don't know. And then they were counting their money because they said, we going a couple other places, right? Yeah, well, are we going to come back through here? So, they understand then, if we give these kids this stuff early, they understand the value. They really do understand the value of money.
That is awesome.
They do.
Listen, this has been an amazing hour. Oh, my gosh. It is 6:01. Dean Taylor. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, Fayetteville State University, for allowing him to come and give us a few minutes of his valuable time. Commissioner Adams, thank you again so much for coming today. I really appreciate it.
Well, what I would say, Tammy, is that, and Dean Taylor's there, I ain't going to put him on the spot, but there are a number of lawyers in town who would be more than willing to come to your church group or your group.
He beat me to it, because that's sure what I'm going to say.
To talk about wills and trusts and all of that. And what folk need to do, they just need, if that's what they want to do, that that can happen. Dean Taylor knows folk who could come out and talk to you to talk about some of these things. We used to do a little bit before COVID, but then COVID hit. But I think it's important for folk to hear it. And I still have people come to me that said, I heard you 8 years ago, and I did some things. And I tell them, you don't have to hire me. I just want you to be able to do this so that you know what you need to be doing. Now, here's one last. Can I give one last tidbit?
You got it. You got 30 seconds. Go ahead.
When that I want everybody out there who's got older parents to go to their medicine cabinet and throw away all that old medicine that they don't use. My wife, her uncle was here. He was a single man. He fell and he got hurt and he had to go to the hospital. And the first question the doctor said was, one, what kind of medicine does he have, and is he allergic to anything? You know what the first thing she did was to go look at the file in the medicine cabinet. Some of that stuff old. They quit using it, but they done changed your blood pressure medicine 3 times, and you still got it up there in the cabinet. So now they trying to tell the doctor. The doctor said, I can't go through all that medicine. I need to know. So I always tell folk, clean out that medicine cabinet, throw away, write down what medicine you use so your kids will know. Last point. This is the last point. Is this? I had a young a lady that was a school teacher of mine who owned a lot of property, right? Not just in Fayetteville because they moved around. She ended up with Alzheimer's, and nobody in the family knew where all her stuff was. You got to document this stuff. Document what you own. You ain't got to give it to anybody, but have something written down, because as we're now outliving our minds. There are a lot of folk who having those moments that we don't remember. And especially for military people who moved around and bought houses in all of these different places, and the kids don't know what we own and what we don't own, don't know what banks we were doing, what insurance we have. Document. Please document. That's it. I'm sorry.
And I appreciate it. Will definitely help with those, but I totally agree with you, Glenn. I mean, you got to have a place where all those permanent records are, so you can put their hands on pretty easy. You got to know what your passwords are and everything. I don't like to give my passwords out to anyone, but in that file, you got to have those passwords in it so you can access those accounts. Very easy.
Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of DMs, a lot of messages, texts, and phone calls after this show again. So if you do have any questions and you need some follow-up information, they will be available to talk to you just as soon as the show is over with. Thank you guys again for rocking with a nation of sisters. Thank you for your support. Please go back, like my page, like WIDU 1600 AM. We love you. God bless.
Your station for inspiration and information. 1600 AM, 99.7 FM, WIDU1600.com. We are WIDU Fayetteville. We do radio.